Thanks, Laura. So I'm going to kind of pick up on a lot of the themes that Stefan actually talked about in his keynote and look at them a little bit more specifically in the context of Google's development in local search. So I think, when most people think about Google, if we can get the slide to go, they think, well, for some reason this isn't showing up, but they think of the Google homepage, right? That you go to this white screen with a search box and you enter a keyword and you get a list of results from Google. But that's a very surface level view, I think, of where they are in this space. And even, some of the algorithmic updates that Google's done, from Panda to Penguin to Hummingbird to Pigeon to even UI updates like the carousel, I think that largely ignores the incredible depth of data and technology that Google has built up in this space. They just announced in a recent interview on Medium that they're doing 3 billion searches per day right now, which is an incredible number in and of itself. But if you extrapolate that over time in their history, I got to a number somewhere around 8 trillion searches, an incredible number of both searches, user behavior, click-through rates, all of these things to draw on as they improve their product in the future. And in mobile and local in particular, they have 10 years of data around surfacing local business information in the context of a search result. I don't know of any company out there that has this amazing kind of depth and history of both mobile and local data. In particular, surfacing local results even without geographic intent, so sort of an implicit local search. This is something that Google has had out there for the last 6 years, which is just incredible. And it's only getting better. Recently, as just prior to the Pigeon update in June of last year, they released this improvement to their algorithm, which allows them to target even more closely on desktop searches, which I don't think anyone else has. And then you look at what they're doing with Google Voice. Google 411 has been around, or was around as early as March 2007, so 8 years ago. The incredible number of voice searches and phonemes and accents and keywords that they've built up this corpus of data around, informing them on how to pursue voice searches moving forward on mobile devices. So that in and of itself is a pretty impressive toolkit with which to attack the mobile and local space. But it's really, they're just getting warmed up. It's just the tip of the iceberg, I think, of what Google can do and will do in local and mobile. So starting to go a little bit deeper in this data iceberg, a little bit kind of at the surface level or just below the surface for a lot of people, is this concept of semantic search. And Stefan touched on this in his presentation, but Google acquired a company in 2010 called MetaWeb with a product called Freebase, essentially being able to take content about all of these from all of these disparate sources around the web and associate that content with what they call entities. And so these entities have now surfaced in the last couple of years as part of what Google calls the knowledge graph. And so essentially these knowledge panels, if you do a search today for a specific company or a topic like weather or a celebrity or a defined concept that Google has built up in this database of things that they've taxonomized, you'll start to see these kinds of results moving forward. And I think as we apply that to local was actually, I think, the first experiment for Google with this entity-driven search. This is a screenshot of a search result from over 7 years ago. And so I think this is going to give them a huge leg up moving forward on other companies because of the mobile form factor. Not only on mobile phones, but iWatches, whatever happens with Google Glass, anything moving forward. Google is far from just a 10 blue links, content-driven keyword result type of search engine. It has this amazing cache of data around entities, which I think fits in very, very well with this new, what they'll need to do with these new form factors. And that's only getting better with the Pigeon and Hummingbird updates, essentially being better able to target entities in a given local market. There's much more to this kind of entity knowledge panel history that Google has, and that has to do with analysis about content that talks about these entities. And I think this is actually, for me, the most exciting thing about what Google has been able to do in local in the last few years. So as early as October 2009, they were able to take structured review information for businesses across the web and associate that with these local entities in their database. and even beyond that, unstructured information, ambient information out there on local blogs, newspaper articles that wasn't coming from a structured data format. They were able to assign this content to a given entity, which we've seen in the new Google Maps taking front and center stage, being able to show very quick snippets about what the experience is like at a given business for all of these data points that they've got in their index. And even now, this was an unannounced update, but sometime last summer, it looks like they're actually applying humans to condensing this information that they're pulling across the web and writing something that looks really compelling to a user. And again, I think this is really, really key moving forward due to the limited screen space on an iWatch or a Google Glass or what have you. I think anybody who's trying to get into this space moving forward is going to have a long way to catch up because of this incredible investment Google's made in the semantic search and the semantic web. Let's talk a little bit about this real-time data pipeline that is somewhat new at Google. So Google MapMaker has been around for about 7 or 8 years. For those of you who aren't familiar with this product, it's essentially Google's Wikipedia for maps. They allow users to curate and add and edit road information, points of interest, et cetera, et cetera. So they've got 7 or 8 years worth of user-contributed, crowdsourced mapping information that they've already built up. And if you think about, Apple Maps has been around for what, 2.5 years, something like that. The incredible advantage that this gives Google with this vast data stretching back 7 or 8 years. And even in the last couple of years, we've seen dramatic improvements in the coverage of this mapping product. This was continental Europe in Google Maps and Google MapMaker in 2012. This is the same screenshot from last fall. So in a 2-year cycle, they've basically mapped every country in continental Europe except for Spain and Portugal. So really, really impressive stuff. As part of this, they've developed and they've invested heavily in a real-time back-end system. It used to be they would rebuild this database, something like once a month. They've now got a static database that can take in data from multiple points in more or less real-time fashion. And I think this is really key if you look at some of their recent acquisitions and partnerships, being able to pull in Waze data, data from their Uber partnership, and making that relevant to users pretty much anywhere around the world. And this is kind of the analog to Google's organic search update, being able to crawl the web and index the web 50 million pages in less than a minute as of 2 years ago. So it's an incredible investment in technology that they've made, and it's incredibly relevant to local moving forward. Let's also talk about the demographic data that Google has built up. And I think when you think about Google+, this is the typical narrative that I hear from a lot of analysts and marketers. Oh, there's 2.5 billion people on Google+, but yeah, there's only like 4 or 6 million who are actually posting anything. And I think that this narrative actually isn't that helpful when you think of what Google's after with Google+. For me, Google+ has always been a little bit of a Trojan horse. I think it was billed publicly as a social network. Behind the scenes, what it did was give Google a single unified login so that you're always permanently logged in to all Google products on all devices, no matter where you are. And I think this allows them to do amazing things with tracking and getting demographic information and regional cohorts and all of these things because they're able to track people across devices, across Google properties. So everything from what videos are the most popular on YouTube based on where people are located and obviously signed in, to what kinds of search results are most compelling for a given category, for a given market, whether that's a local result, a former carousel result, and then sort of adding in this layer of demographic targeting around age, what sites people like to visit, the remarketing ability of the Google Display Network. It gives them a huge advantage when it comes to selling people, selling people ads that are going to be incredibly well targeted. So we've got the demographic data layer now. We're also now seeing Google start to make huge investments in understanding purchase behavior of searchers. So click to call, this is actually a screenshot from an article that was that's a year old. So you have to think by this point, basically 50% of all searchers are using this click to call feature in mobile search on Google. That gives them a pretty good indication of purchase intent. They've had the ability to book hotels directly from a search result for 4 years already. This is from a screenshot from July 2011. They've expanded this beyond just hotels into the auto vertical. They're testing things around, in-store pickup with shopping inventory. In fact, Mike Blumenthal just sent me an email this morning that this might be sort of the next frontier that they're working on currently with their interface. And this is all fairly new relative to a concept that they've had in the Google, what at the time was called the Google Local Business Center, the ability to know when people ask for driving directions to visit a particular business, which is a very strong signal of purchase intent that very few companies can match. And this has been around for 5 or 6 years. Fast forward to much more recently, their partnerships with OpenTable, the ability to book restaurants right from the search result, the ability to track people's visits to a restaurant or a store via Android location tracking or Google Maps tracking on the iPhone. An incredible advantage for them as they're trying to prove to advertisers what the ROI of a Google AdWords or display network campaign is. And we'll see what happens with Google Wallet, or I guess now Android Pay. This slide is a couple weeks out of date. They plan to announce this at their May developers conference, and I think we'll start to see them getting more into tying specific dollar and cent purchases to specific ad spend over time. I think it's an incredible closed loop that they're now able to go all the way from search to visit in store to purchase. Is a pretty tough thing for other companies to match. And I should say, this all sounds like I'm a Google cheerleader. I'm not. I just think it's fascinating. I don't own any stock in the company or anything like that. I just think they have a huge advantage on a lot of other companies in the space. Cross-device personalization, I mentioned, this is something that Google Plus really enabled beyond what they were able to do before. Google Now, I think, is really where they're putting a lot of investment recently. Greg Sterling just wrote about this recently last month, where they're now partnering with all of these third-party apps, and they're now surfacing content relevant to users who have purchased or shown some intent with these apps through Gmail, through Google Calendar, all of their associated properties. And I think as we get even further into personalization, which I think is, as Stefan said, is really kind of one of the more exciting things about where the space is headed. They've had this product called Google Hotpot, which no longer exists. It was rolled into Google Maps. This has been around since November of 2010. This gives Google the ability to recommend businesses based on your review history, on your friends' review history, et cetera, et cetera. They're able to take these sort of social layers that Google Plus enables and be able to recommend better experiences for you moving forward. And I think that this kind of technology, as Stefan indicated, will play a bigger and bigger role moving forward. So it's an incredible stack of data and technology, I think, that lies beneath the very surface level, keyword search box on Google. What does it all mean? I think when most people think about the concept of local search, at least in today's paradigm, it starts with, so it's not going to work. There we go. It starts with the user thinking about a keyword, going to Google Desktop, typing in, okay, I'm looking for a restaurant in Manchester, getting a search result either on Google.com or on Google Maps, clicking that search result, going through, landing on somebody's website, and then either making a booking on that website or picking up the phone and calling them. I think this is a very rudimentary concept of local search, and I don't think this is how Google conceives of the space. For Google, I think it starts with the phone. They're heavily invested in mobile. The phone as sort of giving automatic location context about where a given searcher is, a given user is at any given time, knowing what kinds of things that user has interacted with in the past. So for me, I'm a huge craft beer guy, fan. So if I'm walking by one of the most popular breweries in Seattle, they're going to push to me, hey, on my Android phone, hey, you're missing out on one of the best opportunities to get a craft beer in Seattle. You want to stop in and have a pint? And I say, yes, I do. In fact, I don't even want to wait in line. I want to be able to order the pint right from my phone using Android Pay, get the pint, and then an hour later, when Google knows that I've finished up, they're going to ask me to rate what that experience was. How much did I like that IPA? Was it hoppy enough for me? Would I recommend it to my friends, et cetera? And they're going to use my ratings and my experience at this place to improve the next set of recommendations that they make for me, not only in Seattle, but when I come to Denver and there's all these amazing craft breweries around. And this is something, Stefan brought this up earlier. I don't think Google's the only company that's thinking about this. Dennis Crowley's been big on predictive search for a long time. But I think Google has, invested all of this money and technology and that has this incredible data trove to draw on that a lot of other companies just don't. And I think we're going to start to see them push this pretty hard starting out this year. As for the competition, Yahoo's basically given up on local search as far as we can tell. They've outsourced their listings to Yelp. They're spinning off their small business division. Microsoft is forced to buy a little teeny foothold in Cyanogen, an Android flavor. Yelp is losing more and more traffic directly from Google. Facebook is launching kind of half-hearted efforts in local. I thought this local place tips was a pretty big snoozer myself. And I think that, for brick and mortar businesses, my takeaways would be you've got to adjust your mindset to pre-website conversion, right? Google is going to try to convert you directly from the search result. Help them create really attractive knowledge cards for your business. Think about alternative visibility strategies like Google Now and the display network. And of course, diversify your marketing so you're not relying on Google. If you're really into this stuff like I am, you've got to read this article on Medium by Stephen Levy on Back Channel, How Google Search Dealt with Mobile. It's a 4-part series, and I'm out of time. Thanks very much.